Hello and welcome to Zeitgeist. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of scientific communication, because it's one thing to be a scientist, but entirely another thing to be able to communicate that science to other people. I recently moderated a panel for the Chi Play conference about scientific communication, featuring some wonderful panelists. We had Dr. Kelly Dunlap, head of community at Take This and adjunct professor at American University, Dr. Melissa Boone from Microsoft Xbox, and Jessica McCabe, the brains behind one of my favorite YouTube channels of all time, How to ADHD. Unfortunately, I was not given permission to upload the panel in its full format here on this channel, but the silver lining is that I'm taking away from it the top 5 tips, the top 5 keys to being an effective scientific communicator, and sharing them with you today. Number 1, mind the gap. This is not only a delightful saying that you hear when you ride the tube in London, my favorite city in the whole world, but also something to keep in mind when you're trying to communicate scientific findings to non-scientific audiences. There's a big gap between what research is saying to us as scientists and what it looks like applied and on the ground in the field. Case in point, we know that violent video games do not cause violence, and that work that claims that is built off of faulty measurement, hot sauce paradigms, and fill-in-the-blank questionnaires. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, check out my previous video on that topic. But explaining methodological limitations to parents is not going to be the most effective strategy. Saying something that would relate to taking a more generalized approach, minding the gap, would be more effective. For instance, saying 66% of Americans play video games, but 66% of Americans are not committing violent crimes, suggesting there is probably not a direct link. That would be a more effective place to start. Number 2, write to recommend, not persuade. Academic writing is all about persuading. I want to convince you that theory X explains effect Y, and this is because yada yada. But when speaking to non-scientific audiences, they want recommendations. They want the answer to, what is the magic number of hours of screen time for my child? The amount of times I've heard that question. And while there is not an answer to that specific question, I will go on and on. What this question is meant to illustrate is that we have to reframe the way we talk about our work away from hypotheses and theories and towards direct recommendations. Yes, it's okay that your child has played more Minecraft over lockdown, especially because he's playing with friends that he knows from school, and it's not hindering his school performance, and he's still making progress with his piano lessons and his basketball. That is a direct shout out to my neighbor, who has asked me those questions many times since COVID lockdown started in 2019. Hi, friend. Number 3, educate, don't confront. It is so easy to be confrontational when you hear yet another person, politician, public figure casually mention a link between video game violence and real-world violence. But that is not an effective strategy. Confrontation only breeds hostility and selective hearing. What we need to be doing, we need to assume intelligence and ignorance. In the panel, Jessica McCabe had this lovely anecdote about a parent she met once who was very animated about her position about vaccines causing autism. Disclaimer, there is no evidence to suggest that that is a factual claim. In her example, she said that instead of approaching the person and saying, "You're wrong, vaccines don't cause autism," which is maybe what she wanted to do in the moment, she went up to the person and offered different information. She went up to the person and said, "I can tell that you are really concerned about your child. Here is some information that I have that I can offer to the conversation." And the way she explained it to us was about offering a sweater. If somebody has a sweater, it's a sweater that they're wearing. They don't want to take that sweater off. They don't want to exchange that sweater for a sweater you have. But maybe they'll accept another sweater. So when we're approaching people to educate, not confront, we're not trying to take their sweater away. We're just trying to add more sweaters to the pile until we look like Joey Tribbiani when he put on all of Chandler's clothes. Number 4, don't get lost in the weeds. It's really easy to get lost in the details. Well, the means and the standard deviations were analogous, but when you added identification to the model, the regressions changed and the predictive value, and that changed across groups. Yet no one outside of my academic bubble is going to follow that. And for those in my academic bubble, yes, that was about my recent paper on identity fusion. Good ear. So to not get lost in the weeds, we need to focus on our goal. What is our goal? And just say that. Our social community changes the way we interact and see the world. That is what I mean by all of those other words that I said a minute ago. Put another way by our panelists, data changes minds, storytelling changes hearts. Number 5, find the touch point. When trying to convey whatever it is you're trying to convey, you need to try to find the touch point that people care about. Going back to the sweater story, opening with the "I can tell you care a lot about your child" was key to opening communication. The love of one's friends and family is generally a pretty solid touch point to start with. So when talking to a concerned parent whose child plays a lot of Fortnite, rather than arguing with what the politician said or what the YouTube video said that they saw about gamers destroying a generation, that wasn't my YouTube video, I can promise you that. Open with the touch point. I understand you are concerned about your child. I can reassure you that playing Fortnite with his friends on the weekends is unlikely to have long-term repercussions. Now, I know I said 5, but I'm going to give you a bonus one. Don't be a scientific communicator. Hear me out. Another point made by all of the panelists was that we don't all need to be scientific communicators. Not everyone needs to build and have that skill set. Scientific communication is a completely different set of skills than academic writing. Just like it's a completely different paradigm to talk to a parent or talk to a politician or talk to a fellow scientist about your work. If you want to do it because you love it. Don't do it for the clicks and the shares because it's a slow burn. Although, feel free to click and share around this page. If you're still on board for improving your scientific communication skills, remember these 5 things. Mind the gap, recommend, not persuade, educate, don't confront, don't get lost in the weeds, and find the touch point. If you like this video and want to see more, please like and subscribe. And until next time, be excellent to each other and always cite your sources.